lesson is going to cover key nutrients and the prevention of chronic disease. First off, what are the chronic diseases that we're talking about? Type 2 diabetes, hypertension and cardiovascular disease, some cancers, and also osteoporosis. The Center for Disease Control estimates that around 6 in 10 Americans live with at least one chronic disease, many of which are related to poor quality eating patterns and physical activity. So when we talk about the prevention of these lifestyle-related chronic diseases, we want to think about the big picture, more of the collective result, often over years or decades of food and lifestyle choices. The current dietary guidelines refer to it as a healthy eating pattern. Both macro and micronutrients play a role in the prevention of chronic disease. Macronutrients are those elements that are needed in relatively large amounts, and that includes protein, carbohydrate, and fat. Micronutrients are really important also, but they're needed in relatively smaller amounts, examples being vitamins and minerals. My plate is a visual representation that suggests what the breakdown of the food on a plate should look like. So let's talk about some great choices in each group. Obesity increases the risk of many chronic diseases, and many of the chronic diseases can either be prevented, improved, or reduced when a healthy weight is maintained, or if overweight, if even a modest weight loss occurs. Nutrient density is the amount of nutrients you get for the number of calories, kind of the bang for the buck. High nutrient dense foods will have a high nutrient amount and a relatively low number of calories. Examples include fruits and vegetables, whole grains, lean meats, eggs, legumes, and nuts. And when a diet has an emphasis on nutrient-dense foods, it's going to be a lot higher in nutrients and will likely even be a larger amount of food for the same amount of calories. Added sugars are the exact opposite of being nutrient-dense. Naturally occurring sugars, such as those in fruit and milk, are not added sugars. When sugars are added to foods and beverages to sweeten them, they bump up the calories, but they're not contributing any essential nutrients. So the more added sugars that people consume, the more difficult it can be for them to get all the nutrients they need without busting the calorie bank. Food labels now list added sugars to make them easier to spot. Fruits and vegetables are some of the rock stars in the nutrition world, which is why they make up half the plate. While meeting the recommendations, variety is going to be the key. The more colorful, especially those dark colors, the more vitamins, minerals, antioxidants, and phytochemicals that are in there. So think of like purple and blue, and those dark, blueberries, blackberries, cabbage, eggplant, those dark green spinach and kale and collard greens and broccoli and bok choy. Reds, you can see that deep red in those beets and raspberries, strawberries, and cherries. And of course, orange you're going to see in the sweet potatoes, cantaloupe, pumpkin, and butternut squash. Some other great choices in the vegetable family are cruciferous vegetables, such as cauliflower, cabbage, kale, and Brussels sprouts. They're rich in folate and vitamins C, E, and K, in addition to having powerful phytochemicals. Garlic cloves and onion are rich in important sulfur-containing compounds. Dairy foods, in addition to protein, also provide calcium, phosphorus, vitamins A and D, B12, and some minerals as well. Low-fat and fat-free are the versions that are currently recommended. Protein foods such as seafood, lean meats and poultry, eggs, legumes, nuts, and seeds are packed with V vitamins such as niacin, vitamin B12, B6, and riboflavin, and it's also got some minerals including zinc, copper, iron. Different protein sources provide different nutrients, so that's why a variety of protein sources are recommended. The ones to avoid are the processed meat products. It's suggested that the higher intake of processed meat, the higher risk of chronic diseases. Processed meat is any meat that's been transformed through processes such as salting, curing, or smoking to enhance flavor or to improve preservation. Some examples include hot dogs, bacon, ham, sausages, and deli meat. Fat sources in the diet are mixes of polyunsaturated and monounsaturated and saturated, and they're found in different proportions. So, say with butter, even though it has a high amount of saturated fatty acids, there's still some poly and monounsaturated ones in there. And like with oil, even though it's going to be high source of polyunsaturated and monounsaturated, there's still going to be some saturated fatty acids in there too. And although oils are not a food group, they're emphasized as part of healthy eating patterns because they're the major source of fatty acids and vitamin E, and they help with the absorption of fat-soluble vitamins A, D, E, and K. Now, a bottle might come to mind when thinking of oil, but there's also some excellent naturally occurring food sources of the healthy monounsaturated and polyunsaturated fats. A few examples include nuts and seeds, avocados, fatty fish such as salmon, tuna, and sardines, and also flaxseed. Now, the fats to avoid are the trans fats. They're found in food products with partially hydrogenated oils, and manufacturers do this to make liquids more solid at room temperature. This makes the products more shelf stable or not going bad as soon. And although the manufacturers have reduced the amount of trans fats in many foods, it's still good to keep an eye out for them on food labels. When it comes to grains, whole grains is the recommendation for at least half the servings. They have the hearty bran and germs still intact. In contrast, refined grains have these removed during the milling or the processing of the grain. The removal of them gives it the refined flour more of a finer, lighter texture. But compared to refined grains, whole grains are a great source of fiber and loads of vitamins and minerals, such as iron and zinc, manganese, folate, phosphorus, selenium, the list goes on and on. These are the nutrients that are found in the bran and germ. Now, the gut microbiome is getting a lot more attention recently, and for good reason. Among other things, the gut microbiome plays a big role with the immune system. Fermented foods, with their probiotic content, help to establish a healthy gut microbiome environment. Consuming a variety of them is key. A few examples include kimchi, sauerkraut, kombucha, and yogurt. So let's sum it up. Healthy weight helps to prevent chronic disease. Nutrient-dense foods are the ones to be emphasized. And dairy and protein foods not only provide protein, but also important vitamins and minerals. Whole grains are better choices over refined ones, and added sugars should be limited. And lastly, fermented foods are beneficial for that important gut microbiome. We love you guys. Go out and be your best self today, and as always, happy nursing.